Feeding off the moon and the soil in the earth, breaking through the rocks, growing wild and tall till the buds begin to pop. So pack me in a bowl or roll me in a spliff, or you're breaking me down.
Hello, I'm Ryan here in Portland, Oregon.
Hey, this is Amanda Breeze in Toronto.
Yeah, and we're here today to talk about all the fun and interesting things around our favorite plant, cannabis. So today we wanted to kind of scrounge up some articles, new and old, about scent, about weed, on the grand old internet, and kind of just like let's throw them out there, kind of talk about what we do like, what we don't like, a little education, a little opinion. Should be a good little mini episode.
You know, we do have a trend of picking a word every episode and just repeating it.
Mm,
I think it was
mm-mm.
2 episodes back, the word was interesting, and I clocked it at like, I don't know, more than 20 times between the two of us.
Oh, it's bad. So I do
Today's
some like
today's word is little, so if you hear it, ribbable every time.
take a little puff, take a little snap off the bong. Yeah, I use a translating software when I do interviews with people, right, for the magazine. And it's always just like a punch to the gut when it's just like spitting out your own words at you and you're just reading it like, oh wow, that is the longest run-on sentence. And I said that to a person like 2 days ago. Great.
That's really funny. Yeah, well, we're getting good at it. So, I would almost say you should eat an edible every time we do our word of the day, and then we'll see you next week. You know what I mean?
Yeah, hey, I mean, I don't think it's giving away too much game that Amanda was like, I ate strong edibles last night and slept for like 14 hours. So everybody needs one of those now and again.
It is yeah, like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I did in fact just wake up. But this is a testament to my cannabis skills because I can just wake up, whip out a study, and get right into it. So my head is in the game, even though I'm still completely in my pajamas.
I love it. It's all the overachievers who just busted out their homework on the way to the bus and just cruise through with that B plus, you know? I'm right there
That's
with you.
B plus. You think I'm gonna settle for a B plus?
I did.
No way, baby. A plus all the way.
No, so I was not the valedictorian, but I was the class president for my graduating class in high school. So
Well,
though I was not allotted any time to speak at my graduation, I did sneak a little speech in that I was like, well, nobody's going to stop me from doing this.
hey, if
Yeah,
we're talking about, I was also the class president of my university. I was the president of the
I love
union
it.
almost 4 years running. I
Wow.
completely, yeah, I rocked the shit out of that.
Yeah.
But I will say in year one, I rewrote the bylaws. This is how overachiever I am. I rewrote the bylaws because I felt that a hierarchical structure was counterproductive to the movement and the work we were doing. So technically, I was only the president for 1 year because we went non-hierarchical after that. So
Wow.
yeah, four
And
years.
so I imagine everything descended into chaos after you left, but times were good while they were there, right?
Not only did everything descend into chaos, but as did my life, because that is when I went full hobo and started riding trains, like, left school and then just started being like, I'm a musician, mom, and like just like playing music and doing that whole thing. So I'm gonna burnt out a little after all that.
I love it. This is full circle, and now you're spend all your time like working on scent stuff.
It's true. You never see it coming, but that is really something they say like on day one. As I went to art school, I was in industrial design. So my expertise is like how to design and produce IKEA furniture, right? It's like mass production using the least materials and the most efficiency and all that stuff. So
Awesome.
yeah, that was certainly a direction that was something for a while there. And yeah, and they say on the first day, they're like, look to your left, look to your right. One of you is actually going to be working in this field. So kind of checks out that I was one this year.
That's all right. Now you work in scent, which is a little bit of everything because it's organized, or it can be, right? And also it lacks organization, so it always needs work. and it's so transportive. You got a little jar in front of your nose. I mean, you could be anywhere in the world. You could be riding those trains again, sitting there on a boxcar, smelling the cotton fields or whatever.
It actually, there's a very distinct train smell, and it's like this must and rust. It's like a very metallic rust. So you can always tell when someone just got off a train because they smell like
Mm.
it's like fresh air and wet metal. It's like so specific. And my friend was visiting this summer. He rode freight to come see me. And when he got in, I went to pick him up in my car and I was like, hey, buddy. And I got the blast of the train and I was like, wow, I haven't smelled that in a while. You don't get that aromatic in my condo, you know? So it was nice to have that smell.
See, I like that. And hey, with some of the designer houses releasing like incredibly beat up shoes and kind of like leaning into that aesthetic, why not have some fresh air and wet metal that you could spritz on a little bit and feel like you've been riding the rails all day?
Dude, I love that. Okay. Nobody steal it. New products coming to you. Train smell.
Do we want to hint at some products coming?
Yeah, yeah. Let's hear it. Go for it.
Yeah, great. So in the coming year, Amanda and I are going to have a lot of projects. I'm going to call them projects and not products because that's really what they are. We're doing small runs of scent-based things, all the way from house spray to just wait. And I think it should be pretty awesome. So keep an eye out for those. We're gonna try and do all the like packaging and design and individual websites. I'm biting off way more than I can chew and overpromising as we speak. But it's all coming together really nicely, and there should be plenty of things to look forward to in the coming year.
Well, now that I know we both started out as overachievers, it checks out on how much we decided to take on in 2023 because you was like, are we going to be able to pull this off? But we are planning a product launch. Wait, what did you call it? A project launch.
Project. Yeah, yeah.
He's more of a project that really actually it's like a exploration that we want to share with people. And yeah, we are planning one a month and they are underway. And one of them is a Bruin just a few feet away from me. So things are definitely happening.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. Keep an eye out on all the spots for those. And that's partly why we did not phone this episode in. No, not at all. What we did was just bring some articles in and we can discuss that. So my we have not talked about what each other brought. So
Yes.
who knows? Heady, funky. I've got some nerdy stuff here, but my first article, and I think I'll link these in the episode description, is from the New Yorker. It's actually from early last year, and it's called "How to Make Sense of Sense."
Oh,
Um, yeah, and this is by Rachel Syme, I believe. And this is, I think, just a really nice summation of kind of like what we're trying to get into, right? This is somebody who is obsessed, somewhat very interested in perfume as a kid, and then kind of is trying to like make sense of just the sense we find in our world, right? And where these kind of come from and why they evoke memories and why they are difficult to categorize. So the article is interesting. It's a little lengthy, but it's totally worth digging into. But the thing that I liked about this is that it's a really nice jumping off point for just digging into smells. Like I wish that this article had come out 7 years ago when I first started really digging into this stuff. It would have been much more helpful because it has things like check out here, I'll just read this verbatim. One of my favorite hubs for odor aficionados, the website Fragrantica. I've never said it out loud. I've only gone to it. An online perfume encyclopedia that launched in 2007. Uh, this place is really cool because it's just a bunch of scent nerds, both like sophisticated and not, leaving their descriptions of what specific perfumes smell like. So it's really interesting to get this like whole range of how people feel about something. And as we're going to do more tastings and smellings on the cast here, I think it's really helpful because you can just go grab a bottle of perfume that you have from the cabinet and type it in here, and you're instantly like in a world of scent nerds talking about the same thing you have in front of your nose. Um, So I'll kind of pause here to let Amanda talk because I'm just blah 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 blah.
No,
But that's the
I'm just
article
like,
I'm kicking off with today.
I'm nodding right along. That is really neat. I think it's cool because people are going to have different perceptions of what they're smelling, especially like around the world. So it's going to be the same perfume, but in different places. And I think it's really neat to hear and read other people's perceptions, scent perceptions of different aromatics. I'm going to have to definitely check out that website. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, yeah. And then all of the other things like Nosedive is mentioned in here, which we always bring up on the cast and on food and cooking. So there's just all kinds of great jumping off points for scent and aroma nerds. So hop in.
What's the article called again?
Making sense of scent.
So cheesy, but I love it.
Yeah, I know, I know. I really don't like saying the name of the article, but it's really well written. And hey, as we know, it's usually the editors that come up with the titles of the article, the headlines.
Well, I think that's really neat. It's making me think of like I'm a little bit of a TikTok junkie. Like I
Get
really
in there.
at first I was like, this is dumb. I'm a millennial. It's like I was like, I don't need another website to get addicted to. But I started going into it and I found myself on Scent Talk or Perfume Talk, which is a lot of people, surprising number of people who take really expensive perfumes, like completely unaffordable, high-end, quote unquote, high-end expensive brands, and they tell people how to get the same smell but using more affordable stuff. So they'll be like, oh, you can buy this $5,000 bottle of perfume, or you can buy this other brand from like Wally World for like $8, and it's actually the exact same smell. So that's like, I'm kind of hooked on that. And they do the wafting, they sniff it, spritz it and sniff, and you watch the whole sensory like experience unfold on video. And I'm very hooked on those.
Yeah, be careful going down the rabbit hole. There's a lot of like scent reaction videos on, on these things that some are good, some are not so good. I hate that there's like this young man who has like 10 million followers or something that smells something and just goes, "Oh, oh!" He's like wiping perfume all over his face. I'm like, "What are you doing?"
Oh, I don't know that one. I haven't got there yet.
Okay, well, hey, maybe we'll drop some bonus links in the episode description.
Well, been
Um,
thinking on joining Smell Talk myself because I actually think it would be really fun to post some clips about smell. So I've been having an internal debate on whether I should do it. Go
yeah,
TikTok famous.
just do one more thing and get TikTok famous.
Yeah.
Just add it to the pile.
That's the thing. I'm like, do I have time to post? I barely, Instagram is enough. And reading these, okay, back to work here. I'm just gonna like chug some coffee so I can stay in the zone. But
By all means.
okay, so love that article. On the thread of article names that are whack, I brought with me the sort of newest viral white paper that's been going around. I had a few people send it to me, which I thought was kind of cool. It's very rare that I get sent articles. So I was like, oh, this is really interesting. And this one's called The Nose Knows, which is like a blatant knockoff of my boy Avery Gilbert. Okay. And the article is about further titled Aroma, but not THC, mediates the subjective effects of smoked and vaporized cannabis flower, which is to say, it's the smell, not the THC, that's causing the effects. However, this paper is actually not very good. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. It's been all over the internet. Everyone's posting about it, which is like never happens. It's so rare to see content creators and cannabis influencers actually posting white papers, scientific articles. Like there's a handful of people that do. I'm not saying no one, but the people who have been posting it are not your typical posters of this type of content. So I was kind of surprised at how it really made the rounds and seemed to make this big splash in the cannabis education.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, so this is like pretty close to you know what I do for a job, and so I saw this article hit like the PR wire, right? And it was just instantly seeded in all of the places where you would expect it to kind of like catch on and get a little attention, and you can always tell it's PR because it's the exact same description everywhere, like usually the same lead in. And so I was like, oh, okay, this is just a piece of science that is being heavily promoted right now. So clearly there was like a nice spend behind that to get that out there. Yeah, whether that means it's like, you know, still valuable information or not, like you should read it yourself and decide. I wasn't too impressed with the contents of it myself, but I don't know, maybe I missed something. Maybe we're just too nerdy about this shit. So it was not new info.
Like a little bit yes, but a little bit no. I personally felt like this article didn't actually reach any new conclusions. And considering it's saying aroma, not THC, mediates the effects, it's like they actually really very clearly state that more research needs to be done to determine if aroma changes the effects of the cannabis high. So the article doesn't even get into what the title says, except that basically the conclusion they came to is that if you like the smell, you'll have a better experience with the weed you're smoking.
Yeah.
And to me, that is another perfect example of cannabis industry folks trying to reinvent the aromatherapy wheel, because this is something we say all the time in aromatherapy. In fact, I think it was a year ago, I posted an Instagram post saying, do you like the smell? And going into how whether or not you like the smell will determine whether or not it's effective for your physiology and mental state and all of the things that we know terpenes can affect. And that was just like, that's just base knowledge. I didn't even quote an article. That's just something every aromatherapy student learns on day one. And a practice we employ at the apothecary, you know, like an example being, I was there yesterday and someone came in looking for eucalyptus, and we sell 3 different kinds of eucalyptus. We sell eucalyptus radiata, eucalyptus plumale, and eucalyptus globulus. Okay. So they're all
nice, off the dome.
Yeah. All 3 are eucalyptus. All 3 have the same, you know, 1,8 cineol that's causing the effects of the eucalyptus that when you think of like tiger balm being, you know, a bronchodilator, clearing, opening your lungs, and the effects of that particular terpene. So they all 3 contain it in very high amounts. So all 3 have the same effects. So if you're like, oh, I'm really congested, I need eucalyptus, you can use any of these 3 interchangeably. So the choice comes down to maybe price point. Well, eucalyptus is a very affordable oil, so price point's not really going to play a factor. They're all more or less the same price. So we decide, basically what I ask people is to smell them, and I say, which one do you like the best? Because that's the one that's going to work for you. We do this every time, whether it's lavender, eucalyptus, peppermints. Do you like the smell? If you do, then that's a sign that your body is accepting it and wants more of it. And it completely applies to weed. So anyway, the whole thing about this article is that they talk about that, but to me it's just like you're just repeating something. And then as far as the scientific portion of the study, because this is in fact a study, I don't know. I just thought it was kind of limited in valuable information. I'm just kind of rolling through it right now, trying to find this page that I did.
Well, I believe I am part of that research set because this was written in part by Dr. A.D. Poe, who helped run the Cultivation Classic here in Oregon. And part of being a judge was taking all of these samples of herb and breaking them down, how they made you feel, how you felt about them, and really providing a lot of information about the cannabis and the smoking experience and the effect. And I know that her focus has been a lot on using cannabis in place of opiates, which is important work. But I know that the info and the data has been used for other things, and this just seems like it came out of that.
That's actually really interesting to hear because as I was reading this, I felt like there were two objectives that were happening. And one of them was kind of presenting this idea of cannabis dependency and whether, like, as a drug, whether people will get addicted to it, what, like, they even use the word like hedonistic in there, like whether people are like over, like, there seems to be this one side of like the way we're using it and how to use it and whether it becomes dangerous over time, which they were like,
Hmm.
nah, dog, it's cool. You won't have that problem.
You just go right ahead. Yeah.
The other side of it was like the effects and specifically looking at the aroma. And I think that's cool because one of the things they look at, they did use a lot of because scientific studies start by explaining their methodology and then go into what happened and then go into their conclusion, right? So it seemed like the methodology, they went into really great detail on the questions they were asking, and one of the main scales was, do you feel happy or sad? And I found
Mm-hmm.
that actually problematic. Like, this to me is like, you didn't take the steps. You needed to go one step further because I think basing cannabis use on a happy sad scale makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, I'm totally
Happy
with you there.
sad, and there are two experiences, but like to me, instead of sad, it probably should have been like, do you literally feel your own eyes in your face, scared, want to die? Like, when you smoke weed and you're like, I can literally feel the back of my eyes. I am so aware of my face. Like, that's not sad, but to me, that's like a bad experience.
Right. Yeah, yeah, exactly. You're like, I'm not exactly sad, but I am questioning my own existence.
Yeah, like that is like, to me, that's like, oh, that was not a good experience. Being sad, I'm like, everyone's sad. This, I don't know, like that just, I don't feel like it. I feel like, yeah, the scale was kind of weird. I have a like, I didn't love this study. Like I wanted to. So I recommend people read it. I mean, it still had for sure some valuable information. Um, One of the things was how much you consumed. Like, they basically said like the less you consume the better experience you have, so that's part of like this part A of this person's um goals of the study was to show that cannabis using less of it is effective. um but yeah, I don't know. I i didn't love it. That's all I can say. I didn't think it was that great. So this is like the hottest thing to go around the internet right now. Everyone's quoting it. And the reason, just on one last note, the reason is because all of us terp freaks who have been saying it's all about the aroma, it's all about the smell, this in a way confirms it, but not really in a thoroughly scientific way. I feel like it's confirming it, but once you actually read the article and see how they did the study, it's just like, I don't know. They didn't push the study far enough for me to be like, this is something I would widely quote as an expert.
Yeah, no, I think that's like a really good place to put it. Is like, yeah, this is likely PR for I didn't look too deeply into it to see for who, right? Um, but I did see it going around in those circles, and so take it kind of with a grain of salt because it does seem like there's a little push behind it anyway. And there are people who have said it better, so find them.
This is so my second article that I brought today is people who I
Yes,
think said it better. And that's where I think,
yes.
and you just
Let's
took
get into
that
it.
right there, because
Yes.
I'm going back to my man, Avery Gilbert, because nobody
Hmm.
does. I'm literally shouting at my computer like a boomerang.
Yeah,
Nobody
please do.
does
We'll compress all
smell.
this in
Yeah,
editing.
exactly. We're gonna equalize it, so it sounds like I'm
Yeah, yeah.
talking in a normal tone here. But nobody does it better. Smell studies better than Mr. Gilbert, and he put out an article in 2018 called "Consumer Perceptions of Strain Differences in Cannabis Aroma." We have talked about this before, if not
Yes.
this podcast, then our last podcast. But like, this goes into detail on smell and effects on this whole other level. And the only difference is he does not include a big portion of THC and the effects of that into this particular article, but he goes really deep into how consumers react and respond and their preferences and how they perceive strains, And this was the article that really inspired my super deep dive into cannabis aromatics, because this is the one where he talks about how we're bad at identifying individual notes unless we're working with a list or having some context in place. So this was one of the first times I saw an author actually list scent descriptors in a study in order for the study to be the most accurate it could be. So instead of
Nice.
participants saying, oh, citrus smells make me feel good, they were, they looked at a list that listed a series of citrus smells so they could say orange, lime, lemon, and they were able to really work off of a list to really hone in the individual aromatics and how it was making them feel and what they thought about the flower. And this study was the first one where I saw buttery as a descriptor, which brought me such joy because of the whole cannabis hydrosol making experiment, it being predominantly buttery. And I thought I was losing my damn mind. And then here we have Mr. Gilbert saying buttery is a smell you find in weed. And I was like, thank you, sir. So
Yeah, buttery is such a crazy thing too, because I believe that the like diacetyl smell that we use for artificial butter, and might have something to even do with the like buttery smell we find in plants, is one of those like really simple single molecule high impact aromas, and that's why like movie theater butter popcorn smell or whatever is like really cheap and freely available, and they just like mix it in with some coconut oil. It's a really simple application. Same goes for truffle oil, right? That fake, the synthetic truffle. I don't have the like name of the molecule they use, but it's just super high impact, and it's almost why like most of the truffle fries you get that are just some like bullshit that at the airport or whatever, are really not that good.
It's funny because I used to run a movie theater. Me and my brother had a movie theater
Yes,
pre-COVID. We had
beautiful.
to close because we couldn't stay in business because Ontario lockdown was like 2 years. So 2 months in, we were like, yeah, we cannot afford to keep renting this building and not having events. But I learned a lot about popcorn during that experience because we had
Sure.
an OG cool ass popcorn machine, and every single movie theater in the world basically uses this powder called
Yes.
Flavacol, and you buy it in cartons and you put a teaspoon into like a whole popcorn machine worth of popcorn. And that's what's giving you that like salty, buttery movie theater flavor that you can't just get from like melting butter and putting it on your popcorn. So, hot tip, Flavacol. It's surprisingly affordable.
I'm sure you can get on Amazon because it's the exact same stuff, probably in the same packaging of when I was like 15 and worked at the movie theater and would have to like scoop it into the hopper myself and come
Yeah.
home just like I couldn't eat popcorn for like 10 years after I
Oh
left that
my God.
job.
I couldn't eat popcorn for like 2 years after we closed. I just started eating popcorn like in the past couple months. I could not eat popcorn. That's
Yeah,
funny.
it's really easy to overdo it. Totally. Yeah.
Well, it's the only
Um,
free food while you're working anyway.
No, hey, this is perfect. I want to talk about the psychology of popcorn while we're here, right? And part of why that's like so standardized and so smelling and high impact, is that it works so well, like as a marketing tool, as something that people have like a mental, emotional connection with. Popcorn is right up there. The article I brought today, and earlier I'm like, oh yeah, I like this. This is a pretty good article. I'll share this with everyone from Business News Daily. Um, the more I read it, I'm like, oh, this is just some like trying to sell some scent marketing company, I'm sure. Uh, but this is all about how businesses use scent, mostly to make shoppers spend more. And it's
Okay.
the psychology behind how scent affects us, especially in decision making, which is really interesting. I think that they've shown that less complicated scents tend to work sort of like that loud volume. So you know when you go into the mall and you're in a store and the clothing is not your style because it's for like 17-year-olds, and the music is super loud and there's usually some kind of like perfume scent or whatever. All of those things are just there to kind of like fuck with your emotions a little bit and get you to make a purchasing decision instead of going, oh well, actually I have rent coming up or whatever. Um, but they found that you don't have to be so deceptive. You can just have like hotels tend to have a custom scent or a signature scent that you associate with the property, with the hotel while you're there, and then when you smell it, you go, "Oh, I had such a great time on vacation last time. Let's come here again." So I think it's kind of interesting. There's a lot behind the way scientists have thought about sense plays on our emotions, and like everything, marketers are trying to get their like grubby hands on it.
Absolutely. And we're today's a good full circle episode because we learned about that in design school. We learned about
Oh, totally.
experience design and creating environments that are more conducive to shopping, like how people walk into a store and usually go to the left. So you want to feature certain things on the left of the shop because that's just naturally the even if they could go left, right, or straight, they usually go left. How a lot of brands have signature aromatics to encourage shopping, whether it's leaning towards stimulating aromatics or calming aromatics. So you spend a lot more time in the store walking around. And even last year, I was approached by two different dispensaries to craft signature scents for their brands because they wanted to do, every dispensary has the same smell, especially
Yeah.
because dispensaries are kind of like modern grocery stores where when you walk in, they just smell like nothing, right? When you walk into a grocery store, it should smell like food, but it actually smells like nothing. And dispensaries are like that too here because everything's airtight, super packaged. So there's a neutral aromatic. But I think both of those projects did not go past sort of like the brainstorming phase because I think there was a very definite fear of like the incense drawer uh phenomenon where you're like 16 and you hide your weed in your incense drawer and then your weed tastes like incense. So I think there was some fears that the scents would penetrate the cannabis and potentially ruin all product. I don't think that's a problem personally. I not that I don't think it's a problem if it smells like that. I mean, I don't think it's
Yeah.
actually in with completely airtight packaging. That's what it's designed for, to keep smells out and smells in. So yeah, but that makes total sense to me. I think I've had a theory for years that Value Village plays music slower so you don't realize you've been in there for an hour. Like when you're at the store, it always seems to me like time slows and you're like, oh my God, I've been here for an hour. And I have a theory that they just take the music and just drop it down tempo ever so slightly. So 5 songs really last as long as 10 songs. And you think, oh, I've only been here for a few minutes because I only heard a couple songs on the radio, but each of those songs was like 12 minutes long. This is a working theory. I have no proof of this.
Yes, you're like, okay, it smells like cucumbers in here for some reason, and this Spin Doctor song is slower.
Yeah,
I
literally.
re I re Yeah, and then you end up spending 20% more because according to this, I'm not even going to call it a study. This is like from ThoughtCo. Um, they claim that consumers end up spending quite a bit more, like 20% more, when you have like your scents dialed in.
You hear that, dispensaries? You need to get your cents dialed in if you want your
Yes.
customers to spend 20% more. This is a
Yeah.
huge area of the market that is really untapped right now. And I know that these dispensaries I was talking to did not go through with these projects for various reasons. I'm sure. I mean, formulation is kind of pricey too. So there's that factor. I think what I've noticed working in the smell area of the cannabis industry is that they really don't want to pay big bucks for your skills. That's just been my experience. They're like, oh, can you formulate a smell for us? and I'll charge anywhere between $800 to $2,500 to formulate a smell. And that's like very
Yeah.
standard. And when I say 800, I mean it's like a person, and that's like I'm formulating for a person. If it's a company, we're leaning up to the higher numbers, because I personally base my pricing on whether you're a giant brand or an individual. That does make a difference for me.
Hmm.
And they're like, oh, we thought it would be like, I don't know, $20. Like they really didn't think it would even be in the double zeros. Like, never mind over a grand. So like scent is, everyone wants it, but nobody wants to pay for it. You know what I mean?
Right, right. Well, and hey, we've seen how important this stuff is, and we know that like perfume and aroma sales are the leading um the leading like the leader for net profit for designer brands, right? So like Gucci, they make a lot of money when they sell a belt. They make way more when they sell you a bottle of perfume, right? And great, that perfume might be something that is totally worth the amount that you paid for it. I'm not talking about the value of that. I'm just saying like they because they're blending these things such with low cost materials, they're able to create something that everyone can agree, hey, that's a really luxurious scent. But like Amanda said earlier, like you can probably go get that and add a little oak moss thing from it from wherever and be like, okay, great, this is the exact same scent, and people will be just as impressed by it.
Well, that is one thing I'll say that came out of the article that I was shitting on earlier. They did mention that in other industries like perfume, but actually they were talking about coffee and wine, and they were saying that the price differentiator is the aromatics. So coffee, especially when you think of like a big 5-pound tin of coffee and you smell it, it never really has that vibrant aromatic to it. When I
Hmm.
like to get my fair trade beans, I like to grind them myself. And you really notice the difference. And I pay the difference for that, right? Like it costs more because the product smells better and has a more robust preservation of all of its oils and stuff. And they're basically saying that the future of cannabis is, if you want to charge more for your product, it has to have that smell that goes with it. And that's going to be a bigger indicator of value and luxury and quality. And so those price points will change based on aroma. I mean, this article is also saying all dispensaries should let you smell the weed before you buy it, which I 1000% agree with. And I would love to write a letter to legislators here in Canada. And
Yes.
I wish this was a smidge better as far as research, because this will not hold up, trying to change policy here of prepackaged containers versus buying it and smelling it. Um, but yeah, I will give them that. They did have some good points.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. That's something that we're always going to advocate for. And one of the fun things, haha, about Oregon cannabis is that because things are served deli style out of like the pound jars usually, there is a lot of those terpenes coming off when you come in. Oftentimes, I'll pull into the driveway of a dispensary and I can already smell the cannabis. Um, so hey, that's great, but I'm also like, hey, that's terps that are being lost. So let's lock those up and save those for me when I get home and toss that into my grinder, you know?
That's really. I had a meeting a few weeks ago with a new event space, and we were sort of joking, but not, about how to create good airflow for allowing a smoking space. This is super not legal. We'll just start there. We cannot have smoking indoors here, so this space is like, fuck it.
Yeah,
We want
awesome.
to do this. We're just going to set up really good ventilation, and it's going to be great. And so
Mhm.
they were saying maybe we should vent out the smoke to the front of the shop so that people walking by can smell it. And I was like, that would actually be very cool.
Yeah, yeah. I think that anyone who's like a stoner, knows that moment where you're out in public and you catch not just some like, oh, that smells like weed, but oh, that smells like good weed.
Yeah.
And it's like a next thing. Yeah, and I have positive memories of being in Amsterdam and going down into like the coffee shop, and that is a different scent than like the weed in your buddy's basement of just like 40 people all smoking what they have together. It's powerful. Hey, it's a good memory.
For me, the best weed smell is the trim room. Like there is
Oh,
something
sure.
about a trim room that is just like nothing else. And the way the smell hits you because everyone's trimming, so like
Hmm.
volatiles are just flying around. The room's full of weed, and people are touching it and moving it around like nothing. I'll take trim room smell over garden smell, actually. Like if we're like listing best times to smell weed, like I do love walking around the garden, love it. But trim room, mm, top set, top scent.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. Trimmers are always so focused. I can't show up and stick my camera in their face. I'm interrupting. I'm cutting into
Okay,
their paycheck.
that's the downside. The smell is great, but the vibes are always super weird.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you're just like, hey everyone, no one looks up.
Wow, yeah, you've been around trimmers before.
Yeah.
Um, okay, I think that's great. I think we got into a lot of stuff today. We'll throw the links to our articles in there so you guys can dive in and tell us what we missed and got wrong. You can find me at the Loud 100 on Instagram. Amanda?
My Insta is emerald.temple.living.
Cool. And we're both at the dot smoking spot on Instagram. You should follow us there if you don't already. Please tell your friends and aroma nerds about this podcast. I'm loving to see the growth. I'd like to see tons more people who would like to listen to the podcast find it. So spread the word.
Also, we have a tasting episode coming up, and I feel like we
Yes.
should let people know
Let's do it.
that they can taste along with us. So, Ryan is a chocolate expert and taster. I don't know what is there a word for it?
Okay, I was previously a chocolate maker. I'll take expert. I'll take it. Uh, yeah, I previously was a bean to bar chocolate maker where I was grinding the nibs down
Love
into
that.
beautiful chocolate bars. That's where I really honed my nose and then brought that over to cannabis. Tasting chocolate is a lot of, it's just interesting. It's fun to get into. It's easy. And so we have a couple of bars here we want you to go pick up. Next episode, is that
I
is
think
that
it's the
what we
next
have scheduled?
episode. So
Great.
we
Next
have to
episode.
post our list, but we wanted it to be interactive so that our listeners could taste and experience the flavors with us. Since we can't share weed, we're going to do the next best thing, which is a fun chocolate tasting. So keep up on the Instagram so you can get the list, the shopping list of chocolates that we're going to be sampling.
Yes. And if you can get your hands on, get yourself a Lindt milk chocolate somewhere around 50 or 60% cacao percentage. Go ahead and find yourself a Theo bar. These are made in Seattle, but they're pretty readily available and they're not very expensive and they are good. Theo, grab something around a 70% dark. We'll leave out we'll put more specifics on the Instagram, but for right now, get yourself a 70% dark Theo, a 50 or 60% milk chocolate Lindt bar. Go ahead and grab a Kit Kat. Just get yourself a
Yes.
Hershey's Kit Kat from the corner store.
Yes. And if
And
you're
then was there one
Canadian,
more?
yes, we're doing Choco Sol, which is an awesome ethical company, and they're stone ground. And I picked up, it's called Gratitude. It's 100% cacao.
Yes. Um, if you cannot get Choco Sol, then just look for a 99% or 100% bar because that's going to be a similar experience, even if it's a different flavor profile. So, hey, now you have some homework to go track some chocolate down, save it for the next episode.
That's been the
Um,
hardest part is not eating it late at night when I'm super blazed. Last night I almost cracked them, Ryan. I almost started eating
you know
them.
what? Hey, just do what I do with all my weed and smoke it all down to the last crumb and then just save a little bit to write about. You're like, oh, okay, I can break this up and smell it. And there you go. Okay, everyone's got something to go do, including us. So we will see you next week.
Bye.
Oh, smoke it up, hold it down, and don't ever stop. Well, you can always find your smoking spot. Yeah, you can always find your smoking spot.